I'm Tanya Whitaker. I'm a fifth grade teacher at Green Valley Elementary. I have been working in education for about 16 years. I have been teaching the fifth grade for probably 12 of those years, and I absolutely love it. I am a learner myself, and I continue to try to make sure that I am continuing my own learning. The lesson that I will be doing will be on math, and we'll get into that in a minute. I have a 16-year-old son. He is also a DPS student, and I just love learning from parents and also helping parents with their own students, especially since I have my own. I understand what it's all about. Family engagement at Green Valley is there are so many things that we do. I personally, we use conferences, and when parents come in to talk to me, it's my way of getting to know the family, getting to know what is needed, what kind of supports are needed for their students. And because their students become my babies, because they are with me for most of the day. And so the conferences for me are very important so that the parents know that their child is in good hands. Also at our school, we have lots of events we do. Even recently, we just had a literacy night for parents. And during literacy night in my classroom, I had the students teach their parents how we do fluency in our room. So there's lots of different things that we do throughout the year at Green Valley, um, which will help parents connect more, not only to the school, but also to my classroom. I feel like once parents know and understand how I operate, then it helps them know what expectations to have for their own child. It also helps that I keep in touch with parents through the Aptity um, app for parents and through phone calls, after school, before school. Uh, my classroom is an open door. I've always believed that. So even if parents wanted to come in and see what it's all about, that is always no problem at all for me. So that's a part of the engagement that we have, that I have and the school has at Green Valley Elementary. Fifth grade is a crucial year. It's the last year for elementary for our babies. And then they have to transition into middle school where they'll have several different teachers. The lesson that I've decided to go with is what I feel is a huge fifth grade standard, and it's understanding and working with fractions. Um, because we see fractions everywhere. Um, and it's important for students to know how fractions work. It gives them a stronger number sense. It helps them to understand parts of a whole and parts of sets, and it prepares them for middle school math. Okay, so when we're getting into fractions, it's important to know the vocabulary so that when you're speaking with your child, that you have the same language as they will also hear in the classroom. And so you'll be knowing about the numerator, which is the top number, and the denominator, which is the bottom number. And most students will understand and they learn it pretty quickly, but it also helps you when you're speaking with your student. And I always encourage them to use that vocabulary so that when you're explaining things to each other, you're both really clear on what you're saying. And then we move into equivalent fractions, different types of fractions. We have half, and thirds, and fourths. We see these fractions in recipes, when you're playing games, um, different things all around us in our world. You see fractions everywhere. So it's important to know what they look like and how to help each other describe them and to make them too, to make the fractions. And you can make them circularly and you can also make them with a rectangle. And that's when we get more into comparing the fractions. But this is the first part of knowing what they are and also what they look like. So when we're looking at fractions and equivalent fractions, I like the bar graph up there because it illustrates like two halves equal a whole, then you have your eighths and your twelfths and so on and so forth, and they all show how they're equivalent. Equivalent fractions are important for the most important standard for fifth grade students, which is adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. And for that, they need to know how to multiple, and they need to know their multiples. Um, so multiples are just numbers that are multiplied by other whole numbers. And for example, like 3, 6, 9. It's important for students to know that when they get to fifth grade, they start learning it in third. So by fifth grade, they just have to memorize them. And that will help them get the lowest common denominator for their fractions in order to be able to operate them, use the operation of adding or subtracting. So going into more of adding and subtracting fractions, which is a huge fifth grade standard, the first step is I always like to begin with, have the kids start with to list their first 9 multiples of each of the denominators. And there's a little chart they can make here, and it gives an example of here's this is 1/4 plus 3/8. The denominators are not the same, so we can't just add the numerators like they're used to. So they have to find a common denominator in order to do that. In other words, they have to be the same. And so then the students will list out the multiples for each, and then they have to find the least, meaning the smallest one. If they find there's some that are larger, they use those, that's fine, but it just means they'll have to simplify more. If they start with the least, there's less simplifying that has to happen, which is why I say least. So the first they list the 9, then they find the least, which of these two fractions, it'll be 8. Then they're going to rename each of the fractions, meaning we're finding equivalent fractions for each of them in order to then add or subtract. So with 1/4, in order to get 4, we had to multiply it by 2. And whatever we do to the denominator, we have to do to the numerator. And that's what makes it an equivalent fraction. So in other words, 1/4 is exact same as 2/8. It's the same name. The same way you might have several names, mom, daughter, sister, whatever your name is. Fractions also have several names, but they mean the exact same thing. And then we have the 3/8. Of course, it didn't change because 8 is already there. So we multiplied them both by 1. Now both fractions have a denominator that are the same, and we can move to our last step. And in this case, we are adding, so it'd be 2/8 plus 3/8, and your answer is 5/8. Now let's practice. All right, so now we're going to practice. So the first step is to get the first 9 multiples of each of the denominators. The denominators for this problem is 10 and 4, the bottom numbers. So we'll make our chart. And it doesn't have to be super perfect, but you have to be able to read the numbers. And I'm just going to start with a few, and then we'll keep going. And then you can even have your own student do this. They'll fight you on it. Make them do it anyway. So we go 1, 2, 3. This is what we're multiplying each of our denominators by. Oops. Oops. Okay. I started with 4 for now, and then I'll continue on. But this is what it looks like at home when you're with your children. 1 times 10 is 10. Put it in that box. 2 times 10 is 20. 3 times 10, 30. 4 times 10, 40. 5 times 10 is 50. Then we move over to the denominator of 4. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2, or 2 fours, is 8. 3 fours. So you add another 4 here, just if you need help also as a parent. I get it. Is 12. And 4 times 4, add another 4, 16. And then 4 times 5, add another 4 to 16 is 20. And I stopped because right away I noticed that I ran into a multiple that I have here. This would be the lowest common, meaning the same denominator. And this is what I'm going to be using to now make equivalent fractions for both of my fractions. So for 3/10, I multiplied 1 because, oops, 2. Sorry. It's heavy. Now I need to multiply by 2 for my 10. How do I know that? I look at my denominator 10. I multiplied it by 2 in order to get 20. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 10 times 2 is 20. That now is equivalent, meaning it's the same thing. 3/10 is the same as 6/20. Now I need to do my 1/4, and I went all the way, and it's times 5 in order to get to 20. So I need to multiply both my numerator and my denominator by 5. 1 times 5 is 5. 4 times 5 is 20. Now, my fractions have the same denominator. I can now follow my operation. So I'm going to take 6/20 plus 5/20, and I will get 11/20. And that is my final answer. So remember that when the denominators are not the same, that you have to get them to be the same before you can add or subtract them. This will help you and your child to make sure you're getting the right answer. Wrapping up, um, fractions, they're a part of our world. They show that there are parts to a whole, and we will see them everywhere. You see them when you're watching football or cooking that meal or the football game. So some of the resources that you can go to, of course, is the ones I've been using in my lesson is Khan Academy. It's a free app, and I've even used it for my own self for college. Or you can always get in contact with your student's teacher. They have lots of different ways to help you and your student. Um, Also, you can come and join me in April for a lesson on this that I'll be teaching this exact lesson in April. Again, my name is Tanya Whitaker, and I teach the 5th grade. And when parents thrive, students thrive.